Hello, hello, and welcome back to Vox and Quill. This is the third episode of Deadlight. I had we've been talking. Kevin and I have been talking about this game for the past hour, and I just completely forgot the damn thing. LARP Genie, how are you?
I'm doing just fine. It's good
Welcome
to hear
back,
you.
man. It's been a while since you've been on this channel.
Yes, it has. It's been a very, very eventful time since.
So something to. Oh, hold on for a second. Can you say something?
Yep, I sure can.
Oh,
How's
okay,
that?
never mind. You're not appearing. I thought that there was an echo. Um, the Fifth Age of Evandale, which is where Deadlight is set, was kicked off by something that you are intimately familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
That happened in 2013. How much do you remember
Mm-hmm.
of this?
I remember that there was a lot of magic and technology and progress and people influencing things they probably had no business doing. And collectively, it caused a massive uh, apocalyptic event.
It did. So, LARP Genie here was one of three GM. Okay, so a little while ago, I had 6 games that were running concurrent. That boiled down to 3. Those 3 then all converged. All the players, like 20 or so people, all came together into a single space. And LARP Genie was one of the GMs who ran ran the continuance of a particular group, and then everyone together converged on a single 8 foot by 4 foot map that culminated in exactly what he just said. So the events of that in the fourth age is what led to the destruction of the world, exactly as you said. And
Mm-hmm.
just to give you a breakdown, the world that it is now is nothing of what it used to be. Technology has been set back, like you touched on it, by about 1500 years. So you are back in what would be considered the Bronze Age. There are, and yet as a post-apocalyptic low fantasy type of setting, there are just now guilds and organizations that are beginning to discover, or I should say, even rediscover certain things. So, smelting as an example. So, we're starting to see some breaches of technology, even though it's been several centuries since this destruction of everything. But we don't really understand that from your character's point of view. What can you tell us about your character?
Korvell has been a lone survivalist for a majority of his life. It's nothing crazy tragic, but considering the setting, Korvell lost his parents, one to famine and one to uh, ultimately the attempt to stop famine in a big hunt as he was being taught by his mother how to take down a certain field bison from a certain angle, and that led to a fall that led to her tragic death. And so he took what he learned from his father and his mother and just basic survival as they lived in the wilderness, and has been surviving ever since. And that has been isolating. Primarily, it allowed him to become the master of his trade in surviving and coming across like fallen caravans, people who don't know how to survive while trying to grasp civilization. He's learned that it is important to not interact with others, but to benefit from their lack of understanding of the terrain, the world around him. So he's
How would you
there.
benefit from others?
Well, when there's a wheeled caravan with an oxen that clearly has a broken knee and is still driving forward, and they are going down the long trails over the horizon, he knows that it's going to take about 7 miles for their that oxen to stop, and there's not enough food there for the people in the caravan, and he can come back next week and they will surely be either dead or picked off by predators, and he can. capitalize on what remains there.
So
Very
you
planned out.
so you're benefiting from nature's just nature being nature and swallowing them up, and then you come in like a scavenger.
Yep.
Okay. Um, what is the first sound that you listen for each morning to know that the land is still right?
There is a sequence of bird calls, and there are not that many birds depending on the season, but
Yeah.
there are certain bird calls that indicate that what they are capable of seeing is broadcasting the 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 setting of that morning. If the birds are bright and cheery, it means that there are no predators in the immediate area, at least from their portion of the cycle, because the cycle
Sure.
is important for him.
Yeah.
If the running water is loud and rushing, that means that spring is started to come about. So he knows that there's going to be creatures going to the where the water is, and so their path has begun. So a lot of things are dealt with him understanding what happens when he opens his eyes based off of what he hears, what he smells, and he moves forward. So most likely it's the bird calls.
Okay. And what happens when it's silent instead?
And that's when he knows to use his abilities to find out what is happening, but not out of going. What happens is he goes into hiding. He goes through a trail. He has a contingency plan, and he will head to normally the mountains where many things don't climb. And he has many experiences of climbing and scaling like cliff faces, and that's often where he has his haven away from things.
Okay. So you have like a cliffside dwelling that you can
Hmm.
get into. Okay, Hudson's Haven. Wow. Okay, that's awesome. So in case you guys haven't figured this out, we're doing this live. I have no idea what his character background is, so I'm gonna be taking notes. When you set traps or
Hmm.
gather food, do you offer anything back to the land, or is survival its own exchange?
Something I think I mentioned earlier. Sorry if I didn't, but I did mention. I think I did mention that the cycle of things is
Yeah.
very important to Corvell, primarily because if he does not return back the seeds from the fruits that he takes, if he does not plant some of the grain that may or may not be like fruitful in certain areas, then that won't be picked up by the other animals that are also trying to survive. Uh, he makes sure that he has control over the cycle of his environment, but other than that, he sticks to what he believes is best for the land in which he is dwelling.
Who taught him?
His mother and his father,
Okay.
but that was again at a very young age.
And what's one tool or technique that you use that no one else taught you, like something that you invented just for yourself?
The turn back every 10 seconds.
What do you mean turn back?
Whenever he has, well, throughout his life with the loss of his parents, he whenever he is going in a direction, and that's not only literal but also figuratively, he takes a moment whenever he's headstrong on what he has to do, what path he has to take, what steps he needs to take. Along that way, every 10 seconds, he looks behind him to
Okay.
make sure that one, he's going on the right path, or two, if something is going to take him off of the path he's headed.
Oh, so like you want to see if that you don't turn into a meme with a bear chasing you and you don't
Yeah,
even know it. Yeah.
yeah.
And no predators behind. Okay. So let's talk about your relationship to nature, Corbell. Do you see the land as something alive, something mechanical, or something indifferent?
He is I'm going to say the best term isn't necessarily reverence, but an ascended respect for nature. and it is not reverence because he also has a latent fear. That latent fear of nature comes from an incident that he can't really explain,
Okay.
where nature responded to him at a young age, and he thinks that it was the reason that his father died from like the famine.
So, he died from a famine.
Yeah, and the
Um,
mother died from the fall.
yep. That was from the field bison, yeah?
Hmm.
Okay. Wow. So famine overtook, and he ended up learning how to be afraid of nature. Does he
Hmm.
blame nature for his father's death, or does he see his father's death as no? This is just the way it is.
More so the latter.
Okay.
Nature is the way it is, but the incident that that helped him fear nature, he thinks he had influence over, and it was his first conception of what might be considered magic.
Oh wow, so he thinks he had influence over nature, and that contributed to his
The
father's
death of his
death.
father. Yes.
Wow. Okay. So that's a burden that he carries with him.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, wow. And has that ever changed for you in your view of nature? Um,
Uh, it has it changed more so recently when he came across the body of another adventurer passing through in the colder portions of the mountains to the north. Excuse me, to the north. Uh, it was an adventurer who was carrying a child.
what happened?
There he came across them while climbing, and they were climbing as well. They had everything that they needed, and it turns out that at one point the the adventurer was found alone, but there were signs that there was a small child with them, and he was never able to find uh, the child from where they were.
How do you know when you say that there were signs? You're talking about like equipment that was left behind or
Yeah,
something. Okay. Is there any evidence to suggest that the child either not necessarily taken, but left without any equipment in a hurry, such as the child was forced to run off, the child was
that's why he
abducted?
was. Yep, that's why he was unable to track them because usually he's able to, detect see the extra footsteps or where it escaped from. It was the only trail was the extra smaller set of footsteps leading to where he found the body of the parent or guardian or whatever they were.
Oh, you found a pair of footsteps that led to the adult.
Yeah.
And okay. Um, and you believe that was the kid's footsteps
Yes.
or a child's footsteps?
A child. Yeah.
Okay.
And this at this point, this was years ago, uh, because the significance of finding the body at that point was there was in this very cold place, there was an abundance of green, and which was out of place.
Okay, this is all right. Which was out of place for a that we can consider this like an alpine environment at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you saw an abundance of new growth in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Um, this world does have an axial tilt. Therefore, we have seasons. Which season feels most like home, and which one feels like exile?
Uh, so autumn, or the fall is the one that feels the most like home because he is familiar with understanding the end of things to come, the preparation needed during the time prior. It is where he has the most respect for the seasons as opposed to nature as itself and their dynamic, their Venn diagram of crossing the cycles. Whereas it is the spring that he fears most because that is when things come alive and they start to prepare for their own survival. And that is not exclusive to the animals; it is exclusive to the land itself.
Um, so you're saying that spring feels like exile? You feel more alone in the spring because everything
Yeah.
else is coming alive?
Yeah, you have to be alone because the world is waking up and it is hunting. It is getting ready for
Ah.
yeah.
And also, I mean, you also have winter in between, which
Mhm.
will cause you to use up your autumnal stores. And
Mhm.
so spring can also turn into a time of starvation.
Mhm.
Okay. Um,
It's the riskiest time of the year.
yeah. When an animal stares at you too long, what do you think it sees?
A shape that is blending with its background so that it doesn't seem to be a threat.
Now, in nature, camouflage is often used as a defensive tactic and therefore would
Mhm.
mark you as prey. How do
Mhm.
you differ from that, if at all?
When when Corvell sees an animal, whether that be something that he would consider prey or even a predator, he camouflages himself in a way that allows them to seem like no threat. So from the prey,
Ah,
he is just part of the scenery. To a predator, he is not he is not something that would be hunted. It is
okay.
just a thing that is there. I'm going to leave it be.
That's cool. That's awesome. That's really cool. Okay. Um, what would someone have to do to earn your help without asking for it?
That's a good question. Let me give me a second to think about that because a lot of the times I don't think he's actually come up with anything related to that. And the last time he's had anyone ask him really for help was when he was interacting with caravans at a distance, and they didn't know he was even there. But when they cried out for help and they prayed to some god that he's never heard of before, uh, he didn't feel the desire to assist as this was the way things were. So I don't think he's actually ever had a reason to help someone.
Well, that's interesting. So not he's not necessarily callous. He just views nature as the ultimate decider of one's fate.
Mhm.
Because we're all a part of nature.
Mhm.
Okay. So therefore no one's really outside of it.
No.
Okay. So all things are natural.
Mhm.
Okay. Didn't assist because, well,
Yep.
how do you mark danger for others if you don't expect anyone to follow your path?
How he used to do it was by taking bits and pieces of brambles and making a braid. Braids were something that were very important to Corvell from his mother, as was one of the things that reminded him of how she kept her hair. And when he braids like certain brambles, he weaves the paths of certain stones to give him directions or reminders. Uh, More often than not, than though that's how he identifies cautionary pointers and landmarks and things that could remind him of what's to come in this area.
So we may see a braid made up of some substance, reeds or what have you, and within
Hmm.
that braid, you have intertwined objects that might be
Hmm.
found ahead
Hmm.
as a reminder of what lies ahead.
Yep.
Okay.
Like you might see like a deer bone, like braided between like cracked reeds, within it, which means that this may be either a burial ground or breeding ground for harvesting deer. You might find in a puddle. If it's stagnant, there will be some dried some dried grass or overlapping bark in a braid form to indicate, okay, if the water is stagnant over this little puddleless braid, that means that up ahead in the direction where it's pointing, there is water that shouldn't be drank. Whereas if it's dried and it has moss on it, it indicates that this is the part of the season where fresh water is going through the stream ahead.
So moss equals fresh water ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's Jesus. This is beautiful. Has anyone ever marked something back for you? Have you ever found anyone else's marks?
Nothing of what one would call intelligent. Uh, uh, it's
Yes, spore may not count.
yeah. The animals they'll come across it and they may like move it or break it or depending on what's there, but nothing, no response other than that. But
Okay.
that made him understand the cycle even more because he's like, okay, if I put these berries to indicate that this is up ahead, an animal will come by and like, ooh, berry, and mess up my display. But that lets him get into the habit of continuously doing that.
Okay. All right. Cool. So it's just strictly animals, and because it is just strictly non-humanoids, or
Mhm.
well, in general, that even does. Ooh, does that make him closer to nature or farther apart?
Farther apart. He knows he is unique, quote unquote unique, in part of the cycle, just like his mom and dad were. But he's not. He's not. He doesn't think he's special. There's nothing about that.
Sure.
He's just one thing within the land.
And that's primarily because he hasn't seen anyone else like him, or real. I mean, he knows that they exist,
Yeah,
but he hasn't really had much interaction.
yeah.
Okay. Because his interactions have been. This is why I love sessions years with you, dude. Honestly, I always have. You give me so much good stuff. I mean, honestly, you're creating the world around you.
Hmm.
Do you give names to the things that are out there, such as creatures, stones, weather patterns, or do names weaken their meaning?
I'm so glad you said that because I had an idea for how he uh, goes throughout his process throughout the day. When he goes to find drinks of water, he brings some water back. He bathes. He makes sure that the dirt itself doesn't stay with him when it doesn't belong. Like he
Oh,
even washes himself in certain places so that the earth that like the earth sweat, whatever comes on him, is cleaned away into the place it's supposed to be. He tries not to track things into other portions of the terrain where they don't belong for two reasons. Uh, One, so he's not tracked, because that's important, but also so that he can leave the family of whatever that thing is with its family.
okay. Okay. So, but does he provide names to things? Like, you may see a stag out there. So, you know what? Let's say there's an elk.
Hmm.
You've seen this elk. You understand its markers. You understand its scent. You understand its more rather markings.
Hmm.
You've seen it season after season with a rack, and it always comes new every season.
Hmm.
Um, how do you address that?
If it is one that he has seen repeatedly, he basically calls it the whatever it is. He knows what most of the things in nature are based off of what his parents were able to teach him about survival and living in the wilderness. But he hasn't designed like he hasn't the exalted one. When he says the exalted one, it's not talking about that one stag. He's if he was addressed, it would be the stag. If he looked at just stag going around, but that one particular stag is the stag, or the spire. If there's a rock face that is specific, it is the spire.
Okay. Now, how do you differentiate between two equally important, whatever it is, animal, object,
The one to
landmark?
the east, the one to the west. Like,
Okay. Well, hold on now. So we're talking about animals. I can, of course,
yeah,
cross
yeah,
paths.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
you have one on the left, one on the right, and then they cross paths. How do you differentiate between them? Um,
If
and do
yeah.
you see personalities in them at all?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
There's personalities not only in animals, but for him, there's personalities in the earth, in trees, the way they sway, the way they whisper when they cross each other, the way the branches move. When a tree falls, it's because they had an argument with one of the other trees. So they had an argument with the wind, and the wind won.
Tree. That's fucking amazing. Trees that fall had an had a losing argument
Mm-hmm.
with the wind. I love that. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. So let me go back to this because this is kind of crucial. As I begin to learn what language I need to use to refer
Mm-hmm.
to the things of this world from Corvell's POV, if you have, let's go back to the elks as an example. You have two elks. They are
Mm-hmm.
one, let's say that they're a mated pair,
Mm-hmm.
or no, not even two males,
Mm-hmm.
rival males.
Mm-hmm.
How do you differentiate between them in your mind, other than by markings, or is it just strictly by markings?
It it is strictly. I was about to say it's strictly by how they look, their markings, and sometimes even their attitudes. Because one could be just like an asshole, or the other one could be like, yeah, this is my domain, and I stick to that, and I give respect to the path in which I move.
By the way, I want to say I'm reading the chat as well, and some of them are having rather awesome reactions to this, to some of the stuff they're saying. Hi, everyone in chat. Star Phoenix in particular is saying, I'm going to say that from now on, that trees don't fall. They have losing arguments.
Yep, losing arguments with the wind.
That's amazing. Okay, so you just differentiate um, in much, so you differentiate creatures in much the same way that creatures may differentiate others. Like, this is my mom because I understand the scent and I
Mm-hmm.
understand the appearance.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't refer to each other with names that we would use. So you're
Right.
very natural. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you differentiate based on scent, appearance, etc. Very much like an animal would.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And lastly, this is question number 10. What's the last time you felt fear out here? Not surprise, not caution, but fear. And what did you do with that?
The last time Corvell felt fear was when there was a band of other humans. It had to be probably a dozen or so. Uh, they were moving through, but they had so much stuff on a wagon cart. There were things I couldn't identify, barrels of things, shapes of like stone that I hadn't seen, and like like swords, and they were all equipped, and they went when they camped, when they stopped the camp, and they sent their own scout out, who he was able to identify was somebody scouting. He had to not only be aware of the band of people moving through, but aware that they were they weren't they weren't as attuned to nature as he was, as they would just chop down trees in the immediate area because it was close to a water source. They had a couple of their hunters use their bows, and they hunted down a one of the one of the elk in the nearby area, as well as a couple of the other deer, and they just without returning anything, they brought it back to their camp. But at the same time, while he was observing this, he was also noticing that they had their own scouts that seemed to be looking and tracking someone like him, someone that could, like they were tracking a predator, or someone who was observing or observant of the cycle. So their scout, while they had the skills to hunt him down, he had to actually step his game up to avoid being detected while also observing, and that was terrifying for him because he didn't know what they would do if he was found.
He would know how to deal with them.
Yeah.
That's um, that is, wow. So the picture that you just painted really puts him on the side of nature as one with nature, and very much the same way that animals would view a human. We don't know what the fuck to do with you, so I'm just gonna run.
Hmm.
We can see, like, we take a look and like, you and I have lived in a very large city, and we've
Hmm.
seen squirrels and pigeons, and
Hmm.
they're all around each other. But even pigeons, who usually don't give a fuck at all, will
Nope.
move the hell out of the way of a human that is walking towards them. But they
Hmm.
may not, there's a little bit of, okay, I'll just move 6 inches to the right so I don't get stepped on. In nature, it's so much out there, and
Hmm.
yet there are times when nature is so ignorant of humanity that animals kind of get curious as to what we are. Have
Hmm.
you noticed? I, I have to ask this follow up. Have you noticed that nature has become more reactive to mortal presence other than your own, or does it retain the curiosity out of ignorance?
Both. You see it, you see it more as intelligence goes through the cycle. So like you'll see like coyotes and what are they? Oh my God, I can't remember the name of the animal. Big cat, like cougars.
Sure.
Goodness, cougars. They they have their curiosity when something enters their domain, where they dwell, where they hunt, where they survive. They are curious about that thing and they'll watch. And the animals have an understanding of me, but they have changed. The more intelligent they are, the more I see that they've changed their behaviors to other humans or humanoids moving through. Uh, so it's more of the more intelligent you are, the more reactive you are to it. Where
In which way? Fear or fight?
uh,
Flight or fight?
depends on what they can size up. If a cougar
Okay.
sees a lone human going through, they'll be like, "All right, what are you? What's going on? All right, you're leaving my territory. All right, goodbye. Oh, you're staying here. You're threatening. You're taking, fruits and berries, and you're hunting squirrels, and you're taking something that could be mine. That's a threat. I'm the apex predator here. I'm gonna see if you can supply nourishment from because you smell like you can."
Okay. Wow. And can you then describe your two homes? Or
The
unless you have more, like what does home look like for you as opposed to, well, no, actually, your cliffside dwelling would also be
Mhm.
considered home. It's just an
Yeah.
emergency place. But what does
Hmm.
your main home look like?
Ultimately, it is where I can feel anywhere within nature that I can feel safe with all of my preparations, keeping me safe, are what he classifies as home. So that could be in a hollowed out tree, overcast, over by a river. He knows that there's very rarely going to be something coming down that way during rain season.
Hmm.
So that's someplace he can stay. He'll be safe and he can actually rest and close his eyes. Whereas when things are like around springtime, he'll spend more time into his little like cliff face, hovels, little havens, and so that he can not only less things go there, like not many things are climbing cliff faces to harm him except for some of the flying creatures. And with that he can also observe the entirety of the landscape from that point of view. So he has the ultimate scouting point, but he is also far removed from it. But he finds home in that as well.
Home from being removed from things.
Yeah. Because
So,
he's technically not removed.
sure.
He's still part of nature, the minerals, the earth, the rock that has been shaped by an age long past. Eons, what he can imagine has made the world look the way it is. But he is removed from where life, more intelligent life, tends to dwell.
And there you mean mortals.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, mortals have or humanoids have a habit. It seems intelligent humanoids have a habit of collecting things.
hmm
What is some of the stuff that you've collected so that when we see Korvell, what do we see? We are talking height, we are talking build, we are talking appearance, clothing, equipment. What would us all see before we dive into it?
Corvell has well, some of his adornments are from his childhood. He has his mother's scarf that she used to tie up his hair, tie up her hair. He has that as part of his belt line clip, and he always keeps that with him. It's one of the things that he touches or texture to remind him that he comes from his parents. And he also has a satchel of uh, acorns that are technically part of the cycle that he learned from his father,
Okay.
uh, where it is like he would plant them, but he would always keep one, and it would always die from being dried out or
Sure.
what have you, and he would use that once the acorns that he planted begin to grow. He would put that in a cycle. He would take a dead acorn and put it at the base of the root of the successful growth. So he always has like that going throughout the seasons.
And this is so that it would provide nutrients to the earth and
Yeah.
assist with the
Yep.
growth. Okay, so
Yep.
you're not only planting a seed for future growth, you are also helping nourishing it in
Yeah.
whatever small or grand degree
hmm
to provide. That is an amazing detail, absolutely amazing detail. All right, wow. And let me. Okay, holy cow! You've given me so much. I've been drinking water and tea all morning.
hmm
Can you hold the fort for a second? I have to go to the bathroom
I'll,
again.
I'll I'll explain some stuff to everybody who's listening. I
Cool.
can't
I'll be
see
right
them.
back.
uh, a bit of the clothing that you see on him is half and half. He has leather armor made from the hides of some animals that he's come across, bits of pelts to help him hide and use his camouflage. But he also has some like coverings and fabrics that he's come across from travelers. Most notably, there was one dead traveler who had a very beautiful, very well put together green tunic that had a filigree on it that was mineral based. Uh, Everybody would know that that mineral that supplied the filigree for the green tunic was gold. It was a gold filigree throughout the tunic, and he thought it was beautiful. It had symmetry to it that he doesn't see in nature. So he wears that underneath very often underneath his leather hides, his armor, uh, on top of his visual attire. So he would have what would be seen as a noble's like filigreed tunic underneath his very nature-based protective covers and camouflage.
we,
On top, well, yeah.
we do have I have a picture. Is it okay for me to show that pic?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Um, I didn't even. Well, actually, we can just go straight to the VTT, and then I can show people that. Um, So let's zoom in here. So this is Korvell. You may not be able. Oh, hold on. Like, you may not be able to see too much here, but no. Okay. So yeah, we see here his hair is also pulled back.
Yes.
That's in braids as well.
Yes.
And here we see the gold filigree. I missed that part. Where did the gold filigree come from for someone who like only dwells in nature?
One of the adventurers that came through here long ago, assumedly a noble, but Corvell doesn't know that.
Okay.
Uh, Came through here as one of the surviving people, and while he was trying to find civilization, he just died. Like he didn't know how
So
to
he got
survive
close
in nature.
because nature claimed you just
Yep.
like, okay, well, nature's not going to use this,
Hmm.
or rather,
And it
you
was
are a part of nature, so
yeah.
you'll use it. Okay.
Hmm.
So, you gave me a you gave us all an incredible amount of information.
Hmm.
Um,
I,
so,
I did I did forget to obvious equipment that he has is clearly his
oh,
satchel that he keeps with him.
oh, that's right.
Uh, he has a crossbow, which was something that his father used, and it is the same crossbow that he has used and maintained and repurposed a little bit, almost to the point where, if you imagine the big puzzle of if you have a ship and it's preserved, and over time it rots away, and you replace the wood planks for it. I can't remember the name specifically, but the crossbow itself is a lot like that, where if with things rot away and break away, he replaces it, and it is on, I would say, halfway through its journey of being completely uh, a new thing.
The
It's halfway there.
transition, yeah,
Yeah.
like if you have an item and over the course of time, everything about that item has been replaced with
Hmm.
something new. It
Is it the
shape wise, it
same?
looks the same,
Hmm.
but is it really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's so it's 50% its way of transition from
Yeah.
what
What it
Dad
was.
had to what
Hmm.
you have and
Yeah.
is originally yours. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, what else would we see on your body?
Uh, well, it's hidden, but he has his knife, and he has a small pouch of separate pouches based off of the things that he collects for harvesting and overall survival.
Okay.
Bits of grain, dried fruit, stuff like that.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much for all of that. So we're going to take you to the morning.
Hmm.
You've given us a fantastic idea of what your typical routine might be like.
Hmm.
You listen for the birds. You're
Hmm.
listening for, and from that you determine, from their point of view, if there are predators around at night.
Hmm.
I assume you're listening for crickets. You're listening for a cicada. Anything that would eat these things, they tend to go silent, and that would
Hmm.
inform you as to what it is that's around.
Hmm.
Is it safe to say that you awake before dawn, as usual?
Yes,
Okay.
and that it is a constant. The change of complete blackness of the sky to any light. Let it be some hue of that appears common in dawn.
Okay.
As soon as that light comes through, that's when it's time to go out and get to work.
Okay. So, in this case, you awoke in the morning.
Hmm.
The air's damp.
Hmm.
Moss is embracing the stones around your shelter.
Mm.
Can you tell us a little bit about your shelter?
It's very small. I would say maybe 15, 20 feet deep into the mountain, because it's an uneven crack in the side of the mountain, the one that he chose specifically. There are others, but this one is fitting for him because if he were, say, to fall out, there is a small step underneath to where he would be able to stand and land his full body and survive. So it just so happens that it is a small distance for a drop from there, and once he climbs into the crevice, it is not necessarily a standing room. It's not a standing room spot. It is
Sure.
a like an actual like crawl section, and once you get through that crawl section, it opens up a little bit to where he can kind of stand up. And opening that up, you see where he has he chipped away a small place for him to house water that he brings up with him, and he can cover that with some of the leaves to avoid some of the condensation dripping into it. So it makes it so that he has fresh water at any given time.
So this was in the emergency shelter.
Yes, yes,
Okay, and that is where we are starting our game.
yeah. Hmm.
It is before dawn. Darkness still covers much of the sky, but a glow is now present. You wake up and go through your daily routines, checking supplies and what have you, but you begin listening for the sounds. There's no animal sounds yet. Everything feels still, but not dead. There is a certain amount of comfort that comes with this knowledge. There's no disturbances. Also, nothing new has died because you don't hear the calls of the ravens uh, trying to call others to pick apart something that a corpse.
Hmm.
So, on one hand, nothing died. On the other hand, nothing's being fed. Can you lead us through life as you exit this and where you begin to go?
It is clearly sometime around the beginning of spring, so the transition from winter into spring.
Hmm.
But the fact that visibility of the canopy that he sees throughout the landscape is starting to uh, give life. There are green on the trees nearby. The pathway, the valley that he can see, still has many trees that have not come to life yet. But he knows that the water is going to likely, in certain places, begin to increase and rise and flow throughout this. Not necessarily valley. I can't remember the name of this terrain type, but it is the the base of where water would flow
Hmm.
coming from a mountainside from the like an alpine region.
So, as the snows melt, of course, we
Hmm.
see streams start burgeoning and coming to
Hmm.
life. That then brings water to the land, and nature becomes even more verdant the closer we
Hmm.
are to those water sources. Where are some of the places that you look for, and what specifically do you look for as part of your daily routine?
Here, here, since the seasons have started, Corvell will, or I'll say I will move further south to where fresh water begins to pool, because that's where all of the larger creatures tend to congregate when they have to start their routine similar to mine, which is gathering enough water for strength, their own hunting, their own grazing patterns. So he is going to begin his journey further south. I would say maybe like a mile and a half trek to what during the summer is a lake slash pond area.
Okay. To a lake or pond. Okay, and this is also you begin to get a good idea as to how wildlife is faring. Honestly,
Hmm.
there
Hmm.
is a section you recognize a bent ash tree. It's just an ash tree, and then it's kind of leaning over a little bit. It's one of the very common landmarks that you set
Hmm.
aside. You could see that a spider's web has taken up root there. This
Mm.
wasn't there yesterday, so this is a brand new inhabitant that has come over. Um, do you have any braids on this particular tree?
This one, yes.
Okay.
Uh, when it was younger, this was where I got an important lesson from my mother. This lesson included my accuracy, which was not great coming up, but has evolved ever since. and it is a common point where I look to see the grazing patterns and the migration patterns of a lot of the deer that come through, as well as further out towards like the plains where the bison move. So this is basically a standing point, a scouting point where I can sit and where also I can take some of the bark that is nearby and use it as camouflage to hold up against myself
Sure.
so that I can blend in as well as possible to things that I'm not directly observing.
In walking around that particular area, the ground has always been firm.
Hmm.
There's been no real recent storms that would have brought a good amount of water for the earth to be softer and spongier where you are by your marker. Um, at one point during your journeys, as you're going around, you are foraging, you are collecting water, you are marking where nature has left its course. You notice a particular herd of bison have moved from here to there. You can see the ground that has been mowed clean by their teeth as they graze, and other areas that have grown wild, usually. This time the bison have not moved. So they were here in this area yesterday. But this field looks like it hasn't been touched in about a week. The growth here is abnormal. The ground is softer. The color of the grass is a little bit lighter in some areas and browner, not through death, but through potentially some other cause in other areas.
Korvell, taking note of this, I'm going to survey the area around this abnormality to assure that there is nothing else within sight that I can see while I tend to this. I have some of my younger bits of seed with me, and I am going to sporadically try to reinvigorate that area once checked to see if it's clear.
Sure. So for the very first roll of our campaign, give me a nature check.
Okay, gotcha. Go through my actions. Nope. Oh boy, here I go again. There we go. That would be.
And just remember, as you roll the dice, always give us the number. Say it out.
Yes. I'm gonna have to do this here, cause 16. Oh, now I need to find my proficiency. So I rolled a 16.
Okay. Do you remember where to find it on Foundry?
No, I'm looking now.
Okay.
So I'm running through it. Find effects, fees, proficiencies, spellcasting, inventory, actions. I cannot find
Proficiencies.
This, I apologize.
It's under
Is it in
proficiencies. Yeah.
There we go. Nature. There we go. Roll, please. I get a +5, so 21. And I rolled a 12 to check it on the Foundry, but I rolled in real life a 16.
Sure. Absolutely. So this is it is definitely, the earth isn't just damp. It seems like it's loosening, kind of what you would expect to see with earthworms as they begin to churn the earth. But you also understand that there's a lattice of root that very often holds soil together. This is why trees can grow on the sides of cliffs. If there's enough dirt to hold, they will keep the dirt there. It's this wonderful process. However, it seems like the roots themselves have been disturbed or are beginning to thin out, and yet you can see the growth around you is fine.
Mm-hmm.
You can see worm castings sit on top of the sitting on top of the soil in unnatural spirals. upon closer examination, you notice that there is some fungal strands that curl through, that are curling through moss on certain areas and certain shaded areas. And you can see that these strands, it's like mycelium, is coming up and claiming the moss itself. But they're too close to the surface. Normally, fungus like it under. This is claiming over. It's almost like they're trying to climb. Now, you've walked this area 100 times, and it's always been firm. It's always been cold in this for this area. It's always been root bound, and now it feels aerated, as if from below. This isn't seasonal. It's recent. And we're talking about within days and not just from water.
I will step away closer to familiar ground, at least the most firm ground that I'm familiar with, and I will tie my rope to a holding, perhaps like a rock or that's jutting out, and I will trail that directly to this area of spiral fungal aeration, but I will cover the rope because I'm going to leave that here until I get to the point where I reach this variation in earth, and I will hold it fast, and I will start to make a small hole, a digging hole. I want to go deeper to determine what is there.
The rope that you tied off on the rock, you're using this as a marker. You said that you also buried the rope. Did I get that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes. Yes. I covered it. I didn't bury it.
Okay. All right. Fair. Yeah. Brush over it and what have you.
Yeah.
What was the purpose of that?
So more often than not, because we are so close to the cliff face, it is.
Oh,
it is
you journeyed
well.
down by
So
a mile and a half south, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
But
so remember, this is
because we
Bison
are
Plains.
close. Yes. Because we are so close, I know that it is possible that the earth changing has made chasms, and I do not want for me. I don't want me to not have anything to grab onto in case I've come across some type of sinkhole because the earth has come through.
Got you.
So that is there just for precautionary. At any time, I could know it's there. I've been here countless times. So if I begin to dig and I feel the earth shifting any further than it currently is, I have something
Okay.
for that.
Yep. So you have this rope. It's tight. It's familiar.
Mm-hmm.
You made it. The moss that has gathered in the darkened places. Are you starting around that area?
Yeah.
Okay. So you kneel down and you push aside some of the moss, and the first few inches are easy. It's like wet loam, like a loosened grit. And then your fingers hit a web of rootlets that aren't from any nearby tree. In fact, this is the plains. You can see a tree over there. You see a tree over there. But it's over there. You're finding hardy roots, like feeders that have come out. And they snap like string when they are pulled. And a few inches deeper, you find a stone. Not bedrock. It's cut. It's angular. It's set flat like a lid. There's a line etched into it. It's a groove that has been worn smooth and filled with something dark. Not soil. You clean it out. It's not mold. And it smells faintly sweet. This wasn't meant to be touched from this side. Your instinct is telling you.
I put my hands down on it, and much like I do with trees, where I thank them for their resilience against the cycle, I say, "Listen to me, stranger. I must ask how you have intruded on that which does not belong to the world that is now. Uh, Tell me your secret. Reveal to me what you know, so that I may aid you if you support the cycle in and of itself. I must know this.
May I have a will save?
Oh, well, that was weird. Why are you asking that me? Why are you asking me that?
I can roll a secret if you wish.
Hold on, I gotcha. Yep, it's not proficiencies.
Left side of the sheet in the red section. Or green?
Oh,
I forget where we are.
mine's red. Left
Yeah.
side. Ooh, perception, initiative. Oh, there we go. Saves.
Mm-hmm. It's been a while, huh?
Yep, yes, a really long time. You're one of the only ones saving me from the forever DM curse. I got a 15 plus 5, 20.
Wow. Okay. So, your hands are resting on the stone. Then you remove your hands for a little bit, and you realize that your hands were cold. But it's not the kind that numbs. When you start asking, you realize it's a cold that it seems to listen, like a connection has been made. What that was, your fingertips now are. And it begins to respond. And that sweet smell deepens a little bit. It's not rot. It's not decay. It's something preserved. And then it answers. Not in words as you would expect. Or rather, you don't expect words. And it's not in a voice. Instead, it responds in shape. So the carved line in the stone begins to shift. Not move per se, but kind of reorient. Like your eyes were wrong and now they're right. The groove forms a new pattern, and yet it didn't move. It's almost like reaching to your breath with that sweet, sweet smell. Like it's communicating through some trees when you rub their leaves, or when you pull one out, it releases a reaction. This is what you're getting. And you're getting this like it absolutely heard you. And then you notice it's quiet. There's no birds. There's no wind. And even the moss seems to wait. Your willpower holds. You don't flinch. You don't blink. You do what you typically do. You watch, you observe, and then it resolves. It's a single symbol, curling and hooked, something like a glyph that calls back to an earlier day in your own youth. But it's like a glyph broken in half, not shattered, just incomplete. The stone doesn't open, there's no trapdoors or anything like that, but it now knows that you're here.
I immediately start covering that bitch up. Yep.
Put it back. Put
Yep.
it back.
Mm-hmm.
What is your reaction to this?
While I see the shift and I identify specifically the moment that is a recollection of experiences that I may have been warned about, but I can't remember in this moment, I try to cover it back up. I do, in fact, move the dirt to put it as it was.
Okay. So you are restoring it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Perfect.
And I take some of those seeds, some of those bits of the blades of grass from to nourish it again, and I place it in the immediate surface because that triggered a fear response.
In you.
And yep, and triggered a fear response in me. So I do one of the first things when that happens is I look behind me. I look back to see if I'm observed by anything that's unfamiliar.
Let's go back to the rope for a moment as you look back.
Mhm.
Was the rope tied to you? I'm
It was within reach. And I had the spool, but
Thank you.
it's like the rest of it is laid bare.
And it was taught to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it was always within reach. You had no
Yeah.
issues there.
Mm-hmm.
So you press the soil back in place.
Mm-hmm.
You lay down your seeds. You attempt to re-nourish the earth again. You pack the moss gently in place. Your fingers are dirty, but your breathing stays steady. There's fear, but you have remained in control. You reach into the satchel, you get the 3 seeds or what have you. In this case, we're going to say that is let's say 1 ash, 1 pine, and something unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It feels right. From everything I've gathered from your descriptions, you only do those things that are correct according to your instinct. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. And the air doesn't shift. And needless to say, the glyph is now, whatever that was now, it doesn't return. Nothing else does. But something does. So, are you rising to leave? What are you doing after the bury?
If I don't see anything, I'm getting the hell out of there because everything went silent.
Okay. So you reach down, you pick up the rope. It's slack.
I move to the ash tree instead.
The ash tree is quite some... Okay, not a problem. Do you leave the rope as is?
Yes. Well, I cut it and then I leave.
So, as you go to cut it, you realize as your dagger comes underneath in order to make that cut and then you grab it to form a bite, you look over. It's been untied from the rock. Now, the knot you tied was precise. 1 loop, 2 tucks, what have you. And no animal does a line like that. There would have been teeth marks or something along those lines. No, you can see that the rope is it's lying there clean. In fact, it's coiled. That end, that portion that went around the rock, is coiled at the base of the rock.
Immediately, I complete the cut.
How much do you take with you?
With I'm gonna take the now slack rope. I'm gonna take them both ends, but I'm going to cut that to separate what was connected and now is limp. Return the portion that I had to my loop on my hip.
Okay.
And run. I'm going to run while I am collecting the remaining rope that was attached.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So and you leave that behind. What was coiled?
Nope. That's the part. The part that was coiled,
Yeah.
I'm taking that and I'm running with it to collect it, so that I can then see what happened. If there's any residual, maybe there's like a saliva that breaks down, or perhaps a root or ichor that comes from a plant that may have undone it. I don't know exactly what's at the end, but I'm going to find out while I'm running.
So, okay, so you go over. So you have to go over to the rock and get that coil.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Where did you cut your rope? It's a 50-foot length.
I want to say about the 10-15 foot mark.
Okay, so you have a 10-foot section. Now you have a 40-foot section. The 40-foot section is the portion that also contains the coil. So you begin looping it up. Now, before you do that, do you disturb the coil at all? Do you examine where that is really quick? I understand that you want to run.
If it's within 10 feet, I would say I would observe it. I would see.
Well, it's about 40 feet. Well, it's about 30
Yeah.
feet away. You figure 10 feet was used in the knot and the loop around the rock and stuff.
Yeah.
There's nothing there that suggests that this rope had been destroyed in any fashion. In fact, when you take a look, I'm going to roll your perception for you in a secret check.
Okay. Where is my perception?
That is your
Oh, there
perception.
it is.
Yeah,
Oh, there it is.
just above your saves.
Yep.
Um, there's no saliva. There's nothing there that would suggest that the rope had been tampered with other than untied and neatly coiled. But where the coil lays in front of the rock, you can see a second boot print next to yours.
Mm.
It's not older. It's not deeper. It's just off. It's about a half an inch behind yours. Then you compare the soles. It's the same sole. There was a gash, we'll say, in your sole that leaves behind, that can leave behind a very distinct print. You know what to look for. You always know that it was there. That gash is there in the second print. Give me a perception check.
Ooh, yep. We'll do that. How do I roll this? Because it won't let me hit the.
On the,
Oh, there we go. Got it. I got it. I got
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Roll. I rolled a critical failure, so the total for that is an 8.
So, just as a reminder for Pathfinder, you do have a hero point, which would allow you to re-roll if you wish. And let me just check. Okay. Unfortunately, there have been no new follows or anything like that. The way that that I do things now is that if it happens to be, well, you're solo, so any follow is always going to grant you a re-roll as well. It'll get you an additional hero point up to the 3 that you can hold on to as a thanks and an acknowledgement that they can affect the world. So, are you spending that hero point?
No.
You're not.
Nope.
Just no. Okay.
Nope. I clearly missed something before, so I accept the fate of the dice.
Okay. 10, 15 feet in. So now I'm marking down what you have here. Channel points for a hero point. Oh, you know what? Ben in the chat just redeemed 5,000 channel points and is willing to give you a reroll for that.
I'm gonna do that.
Okay, let's do it.
I'll do that. Yep, I'll do
That's
that.
awesome.
Thank you.
Star Phoenix, meanwhile, is like, put it back, put it back, put it back. Talking about the stone that you found.
Mm-hmm. And this time, oh, I got a 16 plus 7, so that's a 23.
Oh. This is where you notice the differences. You understand how to not leave tracks. And yet, because of interacting with nature, everything always leaves its mark. In your case, you notice toe to heel movements, and you notice the way that you almost never step on earth plainly if you can avoid it to prevent from leaving tracks. It's just habit by now. And then you notice that one of the toe to heels that you have is different. Now, yours drags slightly on the left. This one compensated for it. So I have a question for you.
I'm gonna give you my reaction real quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
My reaction is to take a step forward and use the weight shift to thrust my dagger directly behind me and then turn to look.
You stab at the air. Describe the environment as you understand it in your mind's eye.
In the open path behind me, looking at the landscape, the shift in the hills, there is where I began to walk, where the stone was, where it shifted, and where I replaced everything. That is the only disturbed portion outside of what was originally foreign to that area.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed that not only is it quiet and there's something unseen here, but the wind is also quiet. And that is very foreign for for this terrain. There's usually some draft, some push, some bend to the reeds and blades of grass, but it is still, and that is disturbing further.
Okay. So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How far behind you do you expect someone would have to be before you can hear them?
In silence, probably 60 feet. I would say about 60, maybe around that general area and like completely around me, maybe some dead zones 40 feet directly behind me.
Thank you. You run. You're coiling the rope. You have everything with you now, I assume?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You let your knife fall back at your side. There's still nothing behind you. You take a look every 10 seconds behind you. There's still nothing there. You start, now, initially you said that you start running back to the ash tree,
Mm-hmm.
the leaning one.
Leaning last tree, yep.
Yep. You go back. There's no branch shift. There's no squirrel cry. You don't hear the chittering of anything. You don't even hear wind. Then you look beyond. Now you're coming back the way that you came. You could see things that weren't there before. The trees ahead are younger. There's new growth, tight barked. And this path curves where you know that the land dips. And there's a copse of trees that are nearby. And it's usually filled with birdsong this time of day. The air should be filled with thrush, jay, even the chatter of like blackcaps and what have you. But all you hear is a single call. It's short, it's distinct, and then you hear it again.
Look skyward.
No, nothing. And then you hear it again, in reverse.
Do I make it to the ash tree?
Mm-hmm.
I hold the lowest branch of the ash tree and I put my back to it, kind of like I'm holding it like to my back
Mm-hmm.
and looking out.
Mm-hmm. I
I
got you.
lift a
So like
bit.
peeking over your corner,
Yep.
over your shoulder.
Mm-hmm. I lift a bit of the bark that was remaining on the ground, at least that I usually leave in the ground to be fallen off of, and I go to lift it so that I can basically camouflage myself with the tree
You
so
do.
that I blend in to the nook.
Give me a
And
deception check. Or I'll roll your deception for you.
yeah, and I
For stealth.
in the moment, old friend, what has transpired in your living being? What has changed here? What is this deviation from your natural way? Allow me to guide you. Aid me. I would like to I would like to know and not be prey to the end of the cycle.
You hear the bird chirp again. Sounds normal. And then again. And then a third time. Only this third time, like water being sucked down a drain and disappearing from a sink. You hear that song sucked out of the air in reverse. It's not being replayed. It is literally the bird is warbling in reverse.
I look to the horizon. Is it darker?
No.
Oh, this is troubling. I have convened with the ash tree. I'm going to go back to the base of the cliff face. I'm
Okay.
going to place the bark back down to where it's settled, and I'm going to move a little more cautiously after observing around to see if I myself am being observed.
Let me roll
Eh,
your perception again.
Okay.
You hear a heartbeat.
A what? I hear a what?
Heartbeat.
Oh, all right.
It's coming from within you, and it's beating fast, and it's distracting.
Mm-hmm.
You understand something out there about this world is different. It's off. It's odd. You break from the trail, no wide arc, no rush steps. You try moving sideways, and you try staying inside of the ash for as long as you can just to keep a landmark there, something solid, something that you know should exist. And the branches don't sway. Not under the influence of any wind that might exist. Not even once. And downhill, the land folds into itself, and the cliffside is dry. It's ridged with old runoff veins and scattered shale. And you know that you know every single footstep of that slope. The ground, it feels wrong. It feels like it's been stepped on.
The pebbles have shifted.
No, it's not like something applied its weight to it. It feels wrong in terms of pattern. Like, there are certain patterns of nature.
Mm-hmm.
Water always drips down. Moss grows on the shady side. Ferns typically appear in valleys, or in mossy or in swampy areas.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things that we know. And then you look down, and you're trying to get your bearings. You understand where you are. You look back. You're trying to adjust yourself. You look back, and in the distance, you can still see that lone ash tree, the bent one. It's still there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you look around again, trying to understand what the hell is different about this place. And then you notice one boot print. It's your right foot. Same tread as yours with that mark. Give me a survival check.
Oh wow, I was about to do that before for the hiding bit.
Mm-hmm.
16 plus with my plus 5, so 21.
There you go. It leads nowhere. It just stops mid-stone. You can see the track. It's on a stone. Just stops in the middle of it. There's no entry into that area, and there's no retreat. So you
I
you examine this,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see the gate is identical to your gate. This is not close. This is identical, and the scuff on the outer heel isn't. That's not natural. It's a mirror of your own wear pattern.
I take my right foot and I place it directly into the boot print to match it to see what changes, if anything.
So your boot settles in. It's a perfect match. Um, do you press into it, or just
Yes.
yeah? Okay. Um, so you're standing on that stone.
Mm-hmm.
The stone answers. It's not beneath you, but nearby, and just beyond the boulder. You hear footstep sounds. It's not heavy. It's not soft. Measured. Familiar. And when you put your foot there, whatever little sound just happened to have been there half a beat later, you hear it toe first, and then a nest nearby rustles. There's no wind. You see a braid that you've left in this place to mark that, okay, this is a trail, I know where this is, or this is a base of the cliff, and what have you. The braid slides out and falls loose.
This is ill omen. Aloud. This is ill omen. What is it? I'm placing my hand down on the rock. I'm looking around, looking behind.
You smell sap.
What have you changed?
Well, you look up, and there's a drip, or rather, there's a drip of sap that lands right in front of you.
I examine it.
It's watery. It's not pine. That would be sticky. I mean, this is sticky in its own right. No, this is like ash tree sap. And then you look up, and you see the bent ash tree on the cliff.
I reach down and I take my knife. I look and I recover the coiled end of the rope, the very tip of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I carve I separate the cords of the rope just slightly,
Okay.
but I carve a bit of my own flesh, a small sample of it, so I bleed onto the rope.
Oh, okay. Okay.
In this divide, I have made something new. What world am I in? What world has changed? I must know this. Why is my world change? And do I sleep and slumber? Is this a dream? And I close my eyes, probably for the first time.
Oh, dude. And you hear with your eyes closed, you hear a sap drips again. And from what you were able to pick up on, it landed pretty much in the same place. And then again, and a rhythm begins to pick up. And then you notice that
I take in all of this, all the senses while my eyes are closed. Obviously not vision, but I like reach out slightly to feel the air, knowing that it's still. I grab the rope and I feel its texture, even at the break in the divide. The soft slipperiness, the viscosity seeping into the groove that I made into it with my knife.
Yeah. And the moment that you touch it, the air around you begins to tighten. It's like, you know, that stretching feeling that you get if you've held your breath too long, like you hold on to it.
Yep.
And beyond the panic that can set in instinctively, if you're trained yourself to accept it, you begin to understand that the air inside your body is only growing thinner and thinner and thinner. And then you hear a in this divide, I've made something new. What has changed? Nothing answers in words. But you kind of get the feeling that something around you has changed, but your eyes are still closed.
It is the entirety of this place. This is unfamiliar to me.
Are your eyes still closed?
Yes.
Okay.
I will reach down, because if this place is new, I must be familiar with it. Otherwise, I am betraying the land that I am now a part of.
Ooh,
So
okay.
I begin to feel and learn the rock in which I stand. I place my weight so that I am aware of its placement on the foothold of where I'm standing.
Okay.
I raise my hand and I feel the temperature of the air, gauging whether or not I am in the right season.
Hmm.
I take in a deep breath and I breathe out to offer the wind that I push out to aid the wind that doesn't exist.
So let's go back to the moment that you pressed your hand against a stone. You wanted to feel it, you wanted to know it, and so you reached down flat palm to stone. The blood is still fresh on your fingers, and the earth is cold. It's not hostile. Again, it's that cold that's waiting. It's like waiting for a response. It's waiting for something. It's waiting. Maybe not for you. And the texture beneath your hand, just before you lift it, the texture changes a little. This is before you feel the air.
Mm-hmm.
And it continues to change the longer that you touch it. And first it's stone. And then you move your fingers and it's a little bit softer, a little bit more jagged. And then you realize, no, I'm now touching bark. And then with your eyes closed, you continue to feel. And then something feels like callus, not skin, not plant. Callus in that boundary
Mm.
that forms out of a sense of protection. And it's not mimicking you. It's not mimicking any callus that you have on your hand. It's not mimicking your shape now. It seems to be communicating with you in some fashion. And now it's waiting to see how you will define it.
As I pull my hand away, identifying this change, this shift in how it interacts with me,
Mm-hmm.
I continue my breath to offer to the air that is still to aid it and, and even remind it that it is part of the flow of things. The inhale to take what isn't there, and the exhale to offer aid to the rest of the air around me to better understand. It is a I'm doing a give and take cycle,
Okay.
and then I will open my eyes.
Okay. So you exhale, inhale. It's not loud, it's not forced, it's just honest. It's you. In a way to instruct the air to remind it its place, if you will. And it's the kind of
Mm,
breath that you'd give like a sleeping animal.
mm-hmm.
The kind you give to the mist rising up off of the trees.
Mm-hmm.
And you offer it. There's no command, no binding. It's just inclusion. The rope slackens. You look down. You can see it's uncoiled, or coiled back up, rather.
Mm-hmm.
The wind carries your breath. And you can almost see your breath now, in your mind's eye anyway, kind of drift off as winds do begin to pick up. And eyes drift up, perhaps nervously,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not, to the ash tree, which used to be back over there and is now latched on to the cliff above you. And you see it go. It straightens just a little, just a degree, just enough to notice, almost like you knew its curvature by heart.
Mm.
So, the rock is only stone. But the brute prints have multiplied. There's 6 now. All different angles, and all of them are yours. Where does this lead? You're at the base of the cliff. What other paths are in this area, and where might they go?
There's one further to the north that leads to a small alcove where the rock just covers the ground slightly, but it is a path overhanging from a larger boulder that leads out to the rest of the plains. It's one of the few paths that have variation like this, and that is not even a few hundred feet away. So I want to investigate that and along the way learn the path. I'm basically forming this path anew, like I did the first time I traveled it years ago.
The Do you do anything with the six prints? Look, directions. You can
Well,
see.
if they're leading somewhere, then I would follow them.
Ah, yes. In fact, you do find one that took a step that is not on any path. You follow
And
that one.
yeah, I will follow. That's the one I will follow because now I am tracking ultimately myself or what I believe might be myself.
Yeah, dude. Roll survival.
Oh,
Let's see.
gotcha.
Let's see what you're doing here.
Roll. 11 plus 5, 16.
Okay. Um. So, oh boy. So you follow the new prince.
Hmm.
Are you feeling confident?
Yeah,
Okay. Are you feeling careful? Steady?
less careful because, tracking anything has some element of danger, especially when you don't know what it is you're tracking. But the steadiness, as you implied, is I am what I think is tracking myself or a memory.
Mm-hmm.
So there is confidence in that.
Okay. So the tracks lead you downhill a little bit, off the path and through some low brush and into a rocky break into the terrain. The trees have fallen away. The glen, which you kind of you seem to remember that there was a glen in this area.
Hmm.
It is an open grassland. It's a hollow bowl of stone shelves and frost patches, kind of stacked like old ledgers of history in the earth,
Hmm.
and moss is clinging to cracks. You don't pick up on any wildlife. The breeze, again, has grown silent in this area. It's just the soft crunch of your step on grit. And up ahead, between two slanted boulders, you see a figure.
I lower myself, not a drop, but a slow lower, as to not make my silhouette, if perceived, catch the threshold of vision and motion. I begin to lower myself.
It lowers itself, and this is when you
I,
notice it's facing away from you. Its shape is exact. It's the same scarf, same satchel bulge.
I take the strands of the rope that were available to me, the bits with the very tips have my blood on it, and I peel away
Okay.
some,
Okay.
and I make a braid.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's so cool. All right.
I make and I t- but the difference between the braid that I make in this instance is I make it a circle. I
Oh,
connect the pieces,
okay. What are you going to
and
put into it?
when I grab the bit of bark, the ash,
Okay.
the ash tree, and I put that to signify in the direction of where they are, like in front of me. I place that down on the ground at my last footstep.
Oh, you're laying this in the ground. So this is not being hung at all.
Mm-mm.
Okay. I'm taking notes for everything that you say.
Yeah.
You
Uh,
you have provided so much detail here. It's so fucking juicy because your character has a method which is unlike anything that we would experience in real life. And I'm trying to remain true to that vision. So pardon me
yeah.
while I take
Nope.
copious notes on on this whole new definition of how to survive.
I'll even walk you through it as the direction in which the bark is within the circled
Oh my
rope.
god.
Because the reason for me doing
You are
this,
feeding my ADHD so hard right now.
the reason for me even doing this is for one to add what I have to the earth.
Okay.
It is letting the earth know that I am here, while also playing the indicator of a point of where I have been.
Hmm.
So one, if it's taken by something, that means that something was here. That means that if I come across it again and it is disturbed based off of the memory
Sure.
of where I'm looking in the position, that it was taken by nature, but
Okay.
also to mark a memory of how and why I do the braids in the first place. And that is to hold this moment and then things that are happening in memory. And because the memory is of something I don't remember, like this moment right now, I'm clearly tracking myself in some way. It is full circle. So I placed it down in that way to remind myself, if I come across it again in any way, that like, hey, you found this again, remember how you felt in that moment. And once I place it down onto the ground, with my footprints that I just did, with my footprint that I just did, I am going to stand up, prepare myself,
Let,
and
let, let
walk.
me
Oh,
let me you're giving
yeah.
so much here while you're still down there
Sorry.
and as you're
Yeah,
pressing
yeah.
it down into the earth.
Hmm.
So you crouch down and your fingers are
Hmm.
steady. You pull a
Hmm.
fray of rope from the coil.
Hmm.
It's it. You make your braid. You put the ash bark into it as a reminder that this thing is here and this is the presence of it. And then you press this into your own footprint. Um, you know that you press it into your footprint. There's no other
Hmm.
footprint around. It doesn't react. That thing over there does not react to you.
Hmm.
In your mind's eye, how far away is that from you?
I I want to say maybe like 30 feet ish.
Okay. So it doesn't react. Not at first. And then you feel the air shift. Not wind. You would expect that. But you could feel pressure. Like it changes in your ears. Like this area just exhaled for the first time in years. And that figure tilts its head a little bit, just a few degrees, kind of like that ash.
Hmm.
And not animal like either. You know that,
Yeah.
but not human.
Mm.
It's as if it's trying to understand the purpose of what you just gave back. And then it lifts a foot. And you stood
I
up.
match. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll
and you
definitely
match,
now. Now I'm matching.
and then it stops,
I hold.
and then puts it back down.
I follow,
What do
and
you?
I make an additional hurried step to match that pose again to get closer,
Okay.
and then I turn around
Oh,
to
to
look
look behind
behind
you?
me. Yeah.
Okay. So you move slowly, deliberately. Not your movements. You're still mimicking its
Mm-hmm.
a slight head tilt again, a shift in stance, and then you lean forward without a step. And you echo everything that it's doing, about 30 feet apart, etc. And it pauses. You turn around, you look. Nothing is behind you. Snap back. Still 30 feet away. It has not closed in. And you can see its arm, shoulder raises a little bit. Movements unlike what you've seen before. Like an earth, like a small plant, a budding plant that snaps free of the earth. And as it continues to grow, you see more and more of this. It begins to change shape, rather adding on to it, not so much changing its form. It begins to make itself known. You see a plant growing from it, a writhing around something that we are going to switch over to the VTT.
Oh, I'm in.
And let's get you over here. You can see where you are.
Nice. Nice.
And then it begins to step forward. And you see yourself. Only not so much yourself. Vines have grown. Plants have become very much a part of it. It continues to mimic. Branches come out like a mighty set of antlers, yet all of it is wood. And it stands. One step forward, its head as if sniffing the air in front, leaning forward as well. Predatory, ready to strike. What are you doing?
Know how I was doing very, very subtly the thing where I lowered my silhouette
Yes.
to go away? I'm going to repeat that, but this time I'm going to use the terrain around me. Make puffs of dust just low enough and out of sight of this thing in front of me.
Just
to
you can
kind
see
of-
where it is.
Yeah, like I'm sure it can see me too, but I am going to attempt to enter stealth
Ooh.
using the terrain around me.
So if you see where you are,
Mm-hmm.
you're pretty much in the open at this point.
Mm-hmm. And being directly observed. I want to see if they're good enough to, watch me meld with the earth using the clay, the dust, and I'm going to groove my hands into the ground and shift in with it.
I'm going to roll. I'm accustomed to you doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that this is a little bit of a difference, because typically you do need to hide first and become unseen before you can enter into any kind of a stealth.
Mm-hmm.
It watches you with a detached curiosity, not like an owl watches a mouse, predatory,
Mm-hmm.
but the same way that you had described a mountain cat,
Mm-hmm.
with its very curious nature, trying to determine if you are predator or prey. But ultimately, it doesn't care. You pick up on this. It's almost as if you understand it. It carries with it a weight of the earth, and yet in the same way that there was a stone with a glyph that was repositioning itself, and how the ash tree just went and then grew out of a cliff above you. This is not of nature. Or it is so very much a part of nature. You don't know yet which. You go down and you begin to cloak yourself. You begin to camouflage yourself in full sight. And then you see its eyes begin to unfocus. They move slightly apart. Its head drifts very slightly to the left and then very slightly to the right, looking around, turning its head with a creaking motion, looking around to see if anything else is around, or maybe it's you, maybe it's not. You can give me a perception check to see if you can determine if it's its motives.
Roll. 15 plus 7, 22. You want me to roll my stealth too?
No.
Oh,
I
okay.
already rolled that. I know what you
Oh,
got. See, in Pathfinder 2e, I roll
yeah.
your stealth and I roll that thing's perception and I match it up because
Gotcha.
you don't know if it
If
sees or not.
10-4. Gotcha.
It seems confused.
From my position, while I am crouched, while I have my points to the earth, I am, in the sense, instead of sensing it from vision,
Mm-hmm.
I am attempting to sense the area from my connection to the ground with one hand, and with the other underneath my cloak, underneath my crouched self, I am readying my crossbow.
We're now going to roll for initiative. Let's see what we have here. Okay. You begin readying your crossbow. That's gonna. So now that we are full on initiative at this point. You ready the crossbow. You hold on to it. You steady it. That's one action. That's an interact. What else do you have?
From here, it is just. Actually, I'm gonna try and shift my body
Okay.
similar to the way the mountain lion cougar would,
Sure.
where I keep my eyes on this creature,
Okay.
but I arc to show that I am ready to cause harm if it does the same.
So you were stealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Attempted to hide by camouflaging yourself, and you kind of get the impression that somehow, some way, even though it requires a feat, which you don't have,
Right.
yes, somehow, some way, it managed to be confused, and now you're doing something so it can see you. I want to make sure I understand that you're purposefully breaking stealth at this point.
No,
Okay,
I am maintaining. Basically, for game mechanics, I'm shifting
sure.
to a defensive stance.
Okay, I got you. All right, no problem. Okay, you.
And that's it for my turn.
Okay, cool. Do you have is there a particular stance that, is this a feat or anything like that on your?
No,
Okay.
well, at least I don't think so.
Okay, no, it's no problem. Like monks have specific stances. I don't know if
Oh
you were
yeah,
taking anything like that. Okay, cool.
No.
All right, you go to end your turn.
Oh, like I have to do that, right?
Yeah, you can do that if you want.
Yeah, there we go.
All right. It is going to. It understands that there has been a shift. It begins looking around and starts to take a move. Now, at first, it comes right here and switches immediately off to the left. It stands there right next to you, and you can see, you smell bark, you smell moisture, you smell moss coming off of this thing. The entirety of it, it's just standing off to your left, and it's looking beyond you, behind you. Out of its hands, you can see thorns have grown where nails would be. It severely scouring this place. It does not see you. It ends its turn. You go.
My crossbow ready.
We have a hail hydrate, by the way.
Oh,
I don't want to break I ran out of water, and I don't want to break the tone of the battle. So let's keep going. But note it on the hail hydrate.
not water, but it's orange juice.
That works. As long as it's hydrating, which for me includes alcohol sometimes.
No, yeah, I mean it's water and
It's got
alcohol,
water
right?
in it. I'm sure there's H2O somewhere. It's too early for that. Oh no, it's 2 p.m. I can have now a mimosa. That'd be okay.
Okay. Oh, mimosas are so good.
They are. Your turn.
I place the crossbow underneath me so that if I were to fire it, it would very dangerously pass me. But I am hovering over it, so it's still not seen.
So you're crouched down. You have the And you have the hand crossbow like here,
Hold on, I gotta see your camera.
like underneath you,
Underneath me. Yes.
like this.
Yes. Like,
Okay,
yep.
I got you. So it's on the sly. You've got a little bit of a like, I don't know if you can see me. Hold on, let me come to this. So you're raising it up at this point. Kind of grab it and just do this.
Yes.
Okay, got you. Got you. Okay. Yep, that's not a problem. That's no action. You already have it in hand. There's no interact. So you still have 3 actions.
What I'm doing next isn't necessarily to the creature,
Okay.
to the ground that I'm attached to.
Oh, okay.
To the ground that I'm attached to, I'm going to let out a bellow. A soft bellow into the ground, so it's the vibrations that are felt, not the sound that is made. I am letting the earth know that I am, like, basically now I'm not the one. like whatever everything in this area is attached to, I don't want the smoke, but I'm also not the one. So is that an intimidation?
Are you trying to intimidate nature?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Bleh. 7.
The earth responds for the first time as you push something down into the earth to let it know it's your presence and your identity. In so doing, you separated yourself from nature by identifying yourself. You went against your own creed. I had asked you earlier. Now the earth begins to respond in the same fashion. How do you identify others? I don't. Nature is nature. And you just made yourself stand apart.
Mm-hmm.
It goes, looks immediately off to its right. Do you end your turn?
Yes.
It targets you. And with its right hand, its body not yet fully turned, a backhand against you, followed through with a secondary claw as it turns around. First coming at you, that is going to be a 24 to hit. Excuse me, a 14 to hit. That's going to miss.
Yeah.
And following through with its secondary, that is a dirty 20. It hits you by 2.
Mm-hmm.
You can feel these thorns bite deep. It brings 8 hit points of damage on you.
Oof.
And now it looks at its claws and sees the blood. Looks at you directly in the eye, and you can see just beyond it, just in the single view, the blood gets soaked into its claws, and it gets ready to attack again. It's your turn.
I will take a step. Oh, I can't even move my guy.
Oh, you can't move?
No.
Oh, hold on.
Oh, because it's not indicated on my turn. That's why.
No, it should be your turn. Hold on. Let me. Oh. I apologize. Here you go.
Okay. So with it, why can I move it? Oh, there we go. I'm going to stay close to it.
Okay.
And move. Oh my God! It won't let me move.
You should be able to.
There we go. I got it now. I just select the icon. I move here.
Okay.
And I take my blood from the gouge.
Yep.
And I place it up so that it can see. But now I'm standing up straight. I have the crossbow trained on it.
So we'll say that it tried to come through with a tertiary attack. You managed to duck under it, move in behind it, and then you hold up your hand. Your crossbow is in one hand, and you hold up your bloodied hand in the other, showing that. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. And I will take the shot, but not at it.
Oh. Okay.
I will shoot at its feet.
At the ground.
Yep, I will shoot at its feet.
All right, let's roll to hit.
All right.
So yeah, let's just see what happens.
Where is the
On your show, that's right.
combat?
It's been a while for you. The second
Effects,
round icon, it looks like a
actions.
symbol. The actions.
Yep. Oh, I have encounter. Here we go. To strike. Boom.
Mhm.
No ammunition. Ah,
No, you can. Hold on. There's bolts under there. There you go.
there you go. Yep, I got it. Yep. Boom. Roll. Total 20.
Oh, not a problem. It lands in between. It lands exactly where you wanted it to. I'm assuming this is a warning shot across the bow.
Basically, yeah.
There's no response. Well, you know what? You can try intimidation.
Ooh. Go back to that. And boom. Command something good. 13.
Yeah, it does not flinch. In fact, it looks like it's already rearing back. Remember that all combat is happening simultaneously. It's already rearing back. It's planning on removing your vile head from your vile body.
And I want it now to know that I am a vile survivor, and I will disengage.
Oh, you disengage? Okay.
Yep. Getting out of here.
Hold on. Wow, I haven't heard too many people do that. So let me just look this up really quick. Disengage. I think that's like withdraw, isn't it?
Yep, it's a withdrawal. I'm getting the hell out of there.
Yeah.
Do I need to move for that, or do I wait for the success or failure?
I want to make sure. I have to remind myself. Let's see. Withdraw is not it. Disengage. Disengaging twist. Hold on. How do you pull back from combat? Why am I completely? My brain is no longer braining.
Pathfinder.
Oh, it's a step away. Right.
Different. Yeah.
Right. So you're gonna. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. It's a single 5-foot step back. So you can take that. There's no. If it has the feat that would allow for attacks of opportunity, you would not be able to take it.
Okay.
Yeah. So you just take like a 5-foot step back.
Oh, it was like 8. Hold on. Oh, I can't change that now. But yeah.
Got it. That's fine.
Oh, I can zoom in.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Yep.
And you're done with your turn?
I have the one left. I'm going to ready it again.
Well, so you moved, you shot,
Yep.
and now you're taking a 5-foot.
Oh yeah. So I'm done.
Okay. So it is going to take let's see, one action here to come up on the rock. Taking 2 actions. It's planning on leaping onto the rock. Okay. It takes a full-on sprint on over to the rock immediately next to you, and then parkours off of that to come down on a single attack on you. That is going to be a single strike. It hits by 8.
That's a big one.
What's that?
That's a big one.
Oh yeah, it is. This one slashes you right across your face. There's a good potential. There's a potential there of blood getting into your eyes, but fortunately, it was just a little bit off to the side. You end up taking 9 hit points of damage. How are you looking?
Not great.
Yeah, I'd say that right now you're pretty much looking like you're at death's door. And it is, I apologize. It is now ending its turn. You go.
I will take this opportunity since it is so very close to me, and I tried to give it a sample, and I'm like many things in nature that try to survive, cornered. I will try to attack this thing.
Okay.
Go. Roll.
Oh, the dice looked like it hit an 18 and then just rolled over to be a 5. That's a 12.
That's a 12. Yep.
You can, by the way, you can, I think it's a double right click on this in order to target it.
Oh.
And then it will automatically, there you go. So now it's targeted.
Okay.
And then it automatically resolves everything. Unfortunately, a 12 is not going to hit.
Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna try that thing again,
Okay.
and I think I'm going to run.
Okay.
What's the max distance? Like, does it stop me, or gotta find what's my 30?
Yep.
So boom.
Well, your speed is
Go.
25.
Oh, it's 25. Yep, got it. So go. That's close enough. Boom.
Okay. There you go.
And that's it for me.
Yeah. And it tries to, attack you as you're getting away, and it does fail. Are you done with your turn?
Yeah, I
Okay.
got nothing else.
Yeah, go ahead and mark that.
Oh, yeah.
Coming forward, it's going to do the exact same thing, taking a single move up, and it is going to swipe again. At this point, however, you see its hand beginning to. Whoop! I'm sorry. Hold on, that was the wrong character there. You see its hand begin to take shape,
Mm-hmm.
and it forms the flaying knife that you have at your side.
Mm.
Striking down, taking one action. That is a natural 20.
Mm.
Hitting a crit hit.
That's definitely gonna put me out.
For a total of 26 hit points.
Oh yeah, that's down to 0. I did not have 26 health.
Can you describe the last thing you see?
This creature that I'm guessing I connected with a moment ago before I came into vision is now establishing its understanding of me, because it is also connected to nature. You can tell by the way it shifts and everything. So for me, it is more of an acceptance. The pain is overseen by the understanding that this was intended. This was placed here to change my perspective in some way, and the lesson is learned. Granted, a little late, but
Silence. It's comforting. By contrast, it seems that though a violent death had come, the last breath does not occur violently. It's not loud either. The area that you're here doesn't echo any last breath that you have. It just takes it. Your vision fades and cool stone under your back. Sky above. It's filtered through clouds, what have you. You see only one thing. You, leaning over. Not triumphant, not mournful. Still studying, like watching you. And then it kneels. And it reaches down, not for your blade, not for your pack, or it doesn't roll you or anything. It sees where you left the braid, and then it picks it up. This ash bark marked cord that you created, and it presses it into your hand and finishes the circle. Not perfectly, but close enough. And then it breathes in as if it had taken a gasp of air for the very first time. And then it fades. Your acorn satchel is open. One seed is missing, and a green shoot cracks through a nearby frost layer. Silent, growing. That's where we're going to end it.
Hell yeah.
There. Oh, hold up.
Oh,
Hold up.
oh,
Player heals. So there is a redemption. It's another
oh,
5,000 channel points.
guys, my goodness.
Player supporting players. There is a healing action that takes place.
Mm.
We'll find out exactly how that resolves in 1 month's time. Now,
Mm-hmm.
typically, our games are going to be 2 weeks apart, but you're off on the 27th.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, we will see you in 1 month's time to find the conclusion of this. Yeah. So, welcome back.
Yeah, it's good to be back, baby. Oh yeah. I knew what I signed up for.
We're going to find out exactly how nature works through your character.
Mm-hmm.
That heal is not going to go undone.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to find a brand new beginning for your PC. The question is, where exactly is it going to pick up? So,
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, damn, LARP Genie.
Yeah.
I apologize, man. It's old
No, you're
hat.
good. Good.
So LARP Genie. First off, where can we find you? Give us your socials. Tell us what you do.
Well, I do a lot of things, but for everybody to be aware, one of the reasons I am not going to be here in 2 weeks' time is because I am an actor, a performer, really, not necessarily an actor. I haven't earned that title yet, but I'm a performer.
You literally just role played. I think that qualifies as acting.
As for the conventional
Okay.
sense, theater,
Sure.
silver screen, the like. Whoops, my thing's going off. Uh, I'm a performer, and I'm going to be playing the Red Avatar for Drakenfest. For you folks who are familiar with festival live action roleplay, uh, that is one of the primary things I do. I am law enforcement in my real life, as well as a veteran, and uh, I do a lot of cooking. I started that journey of my existence since my birthday. So that is ultimately overall what I do, and all my socials are literally right there in my name. If you look up LARP Genie, I have an Instagram with some of the things that I've done in my performances in the past decade, and all of my sites will be open to you if you find yourself curious. Follow me on Twitch, Instagram, TikTok. They're all there. A quick Google
You have
search
a
will square it away.
31J in the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have a 31J. That's what is it for? What do they call it in
That
Army?
that that yeah. That's oh my God.
An
Damn if I
MOS.
remember. They changed it. Like they keep changing it because I used to be 21 series. It became 12 series, which was 12 Romeo. I was 12 Bravo, and I took the hotel. I started to go down the hotel route, and what that translates for everybody else to know is electrician, plumber, and I went to carpentry masonry, which would have given me the trifecta of engineer.
There you go. Alrighty. Awesome. We are going to send anyone here on over to an old friend of this channel, the Mr. Malave. He's currently Eric. So he's up and at it right now. And Malave and LARP Genie have been together in campaigns here. Lastly,
Hmm.
it was Untimely Heroes. So LARP, thank you so much for hanging out.
Yeah,
Again, we're going to
absolutely.
see you in about a month's time. For everyone else, thank you. We're going to see you again at 8 p.m. tonight as we begin to see a brand new character as well, the fourth of the 4 characters coming in. And this time, we're going into a slightly religious route. So we will see you guys next time, and thank you so much for everything. Go tell Mr. Malave we all said hi, spread love, and you know what to do. Stay adorable. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.